to any bookstore that handles books on cultural studies or horror films, you're going to find volumes about Chainsaw or references to Chainsaw in a number of volumes. But it didn't start out that way. Its beginning was far, far more humble.
How did it start?
It started in the back room of a little wood frame house in West Austin, where we wrote the script. I lived about 4 or 5 blocks from Toby. I don't know if you guys know Austin, but what is called MOPAC is a main thoroughfare. At that time, it was really MOPAC, Missouri Pacific Railroad. There are just railroad tracks there. So I'd walk from my house down across the railroad tracks to Toby's house, and we'd work on the script in the evenings. I was working during the day as an illustrator.
Well, how did you come up with this? Is there an audio problem? Can you not hear it?
Sorry, I didn't even think about that. Can you hear?
Yeah. We hear you just fine.
Well, Marilyn, how did you get connected?
Well, I was always interested in film, and people in Austin that were in the film business kind of knew of each other. I was in the UT drama department, so I was always looking to see what was coming out, and I happened to know that Toby Hooper and Kim Henkel had just written a very scary script, and so I made it a point to audition for it. And I'm awfully glad I did, because as of next year, it'll be our 40th year, and y'all still like it, and that's really hard to believe, especially since when it first came out, people considered it soft porn. Seriously, they thought it was the goriest movie they've ever seen. And guys, when you watch this tonight, I want you to look for the gore. The only one that gets gory is me, and I survived, for heaven's sakes. So, you know, it's totally different than what they thought it was. It's what you don't see that I think makes the difference. So as much as I kept thinking it would go away and disappear year after year, this one keeps surprising me. But I'm glad to see it's still around and people still like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about Ed Gein.
Ed Gein was a real character, an individual who lived in Wisconsin. He was a little bit of an unusual fellow. He killed a number of women, cooked them up in pots, took their body parts, and made an auxiliary woman out of them. Essentially, this character is the inspiration for both Psycho, Chainsaw, Silence of the Lambs, and probably half a dozen other films. So he was a principal influence on the story, but also the Grimm's brothers, Hansel and Gretel, which modeled the structure of the story on.
Really?
Yeah. Basically, our good guys are sort of led to slaughter at the gingerbread house. They approach it one by one, so to speak, and are lured by little devices along the way. You know, one is the promise of, you know, a swimming pool that they're looking for. But they're little trinkets and little odds and ends that appear that lure them on their way.
Okay. Before we look at the film, you described you're just kind of young kids, as you put it at that time,
True, yes.
entering this difficult market.
Mhm.
Where did you get the money to do this?
We got lucky, really. When Toby and I finished the script, we sat down and we did a budget on it. We had 3 different budgets. Our low budget was $25,000 to do it in black and white. And then we had our median budget, which was $40,000, and then I think our wish list budget was $60,000. Now that's in $73, of course, but still, that's not very much money. And we went out in very sundry ways to find distributors, and they ranged from anywhere from our major contributor, a guy named Bill Parsley, who had a sort of a background in film, to drug dealers, family members, and anybody else
That's
who's
one
armed with good
candidate or
tricks.
two.
Let's call it two.
Who's
Yeah.
Bill Parsley?
Bill Parsley is actually credited as the executive producer. Marilyn, maybe you can better describe Bill Parsley than I can.
He worked for Texas Tech and was a lobbyist at Austin, and he was very much interested in filmmaking. And Preston Smith was the governor at that moment, and Preston Smith wanted to have a film commission. So these guys, good old boys, got together and they decided they wanted their own film commission, but they also were interested in making movies, because everybody always wants to make a movie. I don't care. Most people, the idea is intriguing. And there was also something very good about making movies in Texas. It was called tax shelter. So you put your money in the movie and it's a flop. Oops. Well, it's just a tax shelter. So it's a win-win situation. And so Bill Parsley came on board and was excited until we almost actually got it distributed and realized the film was actually coming out. He went, "What did y'all do? They're gonna have this picture saying the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and my name's gonna be on it?" He got so furious, he took his name off the picture, listed his son, and now his son gets the credit. But no, he was horrified. Then I want you to know, though, through the years, everybody that's ever worked in the capital of Austin, Texas has said, "Hey, I was a producer on that film." I guarantee it.
Failing more, I assure you. Yes.
I've heard all the rumors and legends. How uncomfortable and intense was the dinner scene, the dining room scene?
Far worse than you've ever heard.
Really.
Wow.
And the reason why the dinner scene works so beautifully is because we were all so miserable for so long, and there wasn't anywhere to go. And I think that just lends to the reality. The stinky head cheese, the smelly chicken legs, for heaven's sakes. If you're gonna ever embalm something for, your family or friends, know what you're doing. Don't give them a surprise in the middle of the night, on their 27th hour or something. That was absolutely, can the chicken? No, it's continuity, it's continuity.
Oh.
Well, can you?
From a screenwriter's perspective, what portion of the film was sort of the hardest to write, knowing the constraints of your budget and genre?
Ooh, that was the first screenplay I ever wrote. I think I'd read one screenplay, actually seen the physical screenplay once before in my life. So, I was just winging it. I was going purely on instinct. Yes.
Is there anything now that you've probably seen it 100 times or more that you'd go back and change? And conversely, is there something that you didn't expect to turn out as well as it did and it
From
did?
a writer's perspective, I'd probably change everything. But this is an iconic film. I'm not about to go and change a single thing. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Well, as a follow-up to the question about what would you change, I don't know if everybody knows you did direct a follow-up to this film. So
Yeah,
you
that's
You
what
have to
changed
mention
things.
that.
Come on. You actually wrote and directed the fourth Chainsaw.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
Thanks for reminding me.
What did you watch it was a remake of it, but you did make changes,
Yeah.
even though it was a remake.
It wasn't really a remake. It replicated some of the action. I didn't look at it in that way.
You told me it was a remake.
He made the making of the film.
But there are changes. For example, just in the character of Leatherface.
He is who he wears, and many sides. We just chose to show a few different ones. We showed a little bit more of his feminine side.
There are a lot more.
Well, Actually, there was a scene written for the original Chainsaw, and we actually shot it. I don't know if it exists in this outtakes or not, where Leatherface, Gunnar Hansen's Leatherface, is in the powder room doing his makeup.
Yeah, I remember that well. He did that so exquisitely.
Leatherface is actually a transsexual.
No, I would.
You said that.
He just feels pretty.
Leatherface wears. If he wears a woman's face, he is a woman. You know, he is the individual. He is the face he wears. He is all of us.
So that's sort of the connection to Ed Gein, who used to dress himself at times in body part. Like, didn't he make a vest out of his mother's breasts?
I think he made a female bodysuit like the character in Silence of the Lambs, which is also based on Ed Gein. And
Right.
the same
So
source
Leatherface
material.
comes out of that.
Yes, but you know, he's not just that. He's not just a transgender individual. We wanted him to be the monster in the sense that the monster is us, because he can be any of us. You know, he is who he wears, and he is the monster is us. But we didn't want him to be, you know, the average dude either. I mean, he has particularly, you know, unusual habits. Let's say.
So way at the back.
Did you have any social commentary in mind when you wrote the movie, particularly towards the beginning, which seems kind of anti-slaughterhouse?
Well, you know, you know, sometimes you do things consciously and sometimes you do things somewhat unconsciously. You know, looking at it in retrospect, I'd have to say that what it does is look at some sort of social unit, like a family, and ask the question is, you know, what do you have permission, or what do you give yourself permission to do if you feel yourself threatened? The conventional answer in those kind of things is, well, they can kill you, but they can't eat you. So in our case, they decided, well, we can go you one better. Not only can we kill you, but we can eat you. So it's about transgression, if that makes sense in that context. What can we do? I mean, we see going on today a lot of kind of transgressive conduct in terms of how do you defend your civilization, your way of life. These guys, the chainsaw guys, I think of kind of like as redneck Luddites. Their real bitch was the new technology had put them in a position such that their way of life was threatened. No longer do they use the hammer. I think Grandpa was the expert at the hammer. They use this pneumatic gun that's just really devastated their way of life. So, anyway.
And also you have a strange contradiction in them, because there's a savage family that are engaged in cannibalism and murder. And yet, when Leatherface chainsaws the front door, he's chided by the leader of the family.
Oh yeah, that was very much a part of it. It was the kind of
Like a very middle class kind of response.
Exactly, and we wanted to give them all those normal middle class values. Remember the cook, he gets upset about the cost of electricity and how it's going to affect his business in the midst of all the hell's going on. So yeah, there was that. I wanted to juxtapose, you know, very conventional middle class values with the transgressive behavior. I think we sometimes tend to see the bad guys as somehow very other than ourselves, but we all, even the bad guys, you know, embrace the same fundamental values. They, in their minds, I would think, would look at this as, look, we're under assault here. What are we going to do to preserve our way of life? They're being the good guys. They're being reactive to you know, what they're faced with in the world. That's why we have terrorism. That's why we have the Patriot Act. That's why we have the NSA. It's all protecting our way of life. And you know, we're out sending out drones to, you know, bomb people and do all this shit to protect our way of life. These guys were just protecting our way of life, you know. You gotta survive. It's a tough world. What are you gonna do? Yes.
On this viewing, the scene of running through the brambles and trees just seemed to go on and on. And could you talk a little bit about filming that scene? Like, how long did that take?
Any of the time running through the woods it seemed like forever. Those were mesquite thorns in the brambles, and they hurt. And they were big and mean. And there was one time where my hair gets caught, and everybody thinks, oh, how neat and dramatic. That wasn't neat and dramatic. That was my hair really being caught by the long mesquite. In the meantime, Gunnar, who's wearing a mask that you can't, they didn't fix the eyes right. He couldn't hardly see through those little peaky eyes. And he's doing the chainsaw. That's making so much noise. I can't yell, stop you! You know, to get him to quit playing with the chainsaw and pay attention. I'm in trouble here. So at that particular point, I was really scared because I didn't know. That was like a blend of reality versus what a nightmare, because he was just kept coming. And there were just so many shots. And the one thing that wasn't funny about the shooting, but we only had just so much track to lay down. So what we have to do is lay the track, run, 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 pick up the track, lay the track, run, run, run. That was the most tedious. We could have done that much faster if we had a little more money, a little more track. We could have just ran, but no, we had to keep stopping and starting. But that made it all part of the thrill.
Was that filmed at night or was it day for night shooting?
Oh my goodness, they wouldn't be that clever. We filmed at night. Now a lot of times, but a lot of times, you know, night became day, day became night, whatever. It just sort of happened. But we'd start something at night, and it would be the same thing like when Jim, the old man, was trying to hit me in the gas station scene with the broom. We'd been there all night, and now the sun's coming up, and you can just hear these little cars getting ready to get their gas tanks filled up. And Toby's going, Jim, you gotta hit her. You really have to hit her. You're pulling punches, it looks fake. And so he finally said, I said, Jim, our whole thing's changing. It's gonna be light any minute now. Do you want to spend another night like this here? And I said, just go ahead and hit me. So yes, this next take, Jim just hauled off and slugged me, and that's when I lay on the floor with that black eye. As you can see, my face gets a little swollen and I'm a little dazed. That was another real moment of the film. Didn't take any acting for that one. But those were the kind of moments that we're nights blending into day and days blending into nights, and you're just trying to get your footage before everybody comes in to get their gas.
At the end of the movie, I like Sally's reaction to getting away. It's a it's a good mix of like happiness and panic and just amazement at everything she just saw. In each of y'all's opinion, does this just completely destroy her for the rest of her life, or do you think she should recover from it in the end?
Oh, I personally think Sally's a real strong character. She just came back in one piece and went on about her business. We got to give the girl a break. I mean, she did get away. You know, let's give her the benefit of the doubt. We'd hate to hear she became some drizzled old mental state person later on in life. That would be absolutely awful. But refreshed herself, got a few weeks sleep, and
My version is essentially the same, except a little bit more condensed. There's no 2 weeks. They drive away in a pickup truck, get down the road several hundred yards, the guy slams on the brake, gets out of the truck, drags her out of it, says, you thought this was over? It's just getting started.
Woo! That's my version too.
now that would have been...